I show their terminology and ours, and I talk about this is how I make you feel the way I felt when I came into your winery. And if you make me feel that way, I will not buy the product because I don't value something that I don't understand. That is exactly the challenge we have in accounting. Nobody knows what we're really doing. And so if we want to increase the value of what we deliver, we've got to break down those barriers to understanding and find ways to make the information meaningful and relevant to what they're trying to accomplish.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today we're kicking off the first of a two-part series with Geni Whitehouse. She's the founder of The Impactful Advisor and a former CPA turned speaker, author, and consultant. In part one, she shares how she went from tax and tech to helping others communicate with clarity and confidence while ditching jargon to build trust and connection. Let's get to that conversation right now. Geni Whitehouse, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Michael. I'm honored to be here.
It's great to have you. So I always like to start off with introducing you to our listener. And so if you want to share your journey to doing what you're doing today.
It's kind of a long one. I'll try to keep it short, Michael.
I love the stories, so take your time.
15 years in accounting. In seventh grade, I decided I wanted to be a CPA. And so everything I did after that was to be that and eventually to be a partner in a CPA firm. Started with Deloitte, did all the usual Big Four stuff for a period of time, did corporate accounting, ended up finding my way to computer consulting, built my own practice in Atlanta, which I then took to a firm to help grow and expand, and also because I had more work than I could handle. And I really liked the computer stuff, but I was also doing tax because that was my background. So I took it to a firm, grew the practice. I brought in a lot of work because that was the stuff that I really like to do. I like to talk to people, and realized the day that I made partner that I was going to be stuck doing taxes for the rest of my life. And I realized two things. One, I wasn't that good at it. I had to work way harder than everybody else just to be average at it. And secondly, I wasn't making a difference for those clients, and I really cared about them. And I think that's one of the things that unites us as accountants is that we are really motivated to do good for our clients, and we really want to help them succeed. And when you're handing them a tax return, they don't get excited. They don't hug your neck, Michael. I never got that response. Basically, they had a dedicated drawer for tax returns to go in. They just shoved it in there and went about their business. And the worst thing is if the client owed money. So I left there. I went into high tech. I had a client that was a technology company, and I started doing training. And I realized that that was something that I really enjoyed doing. Taking concepts and making them connect with people is ultimately the thing that drives me forward. From there, I went into a software company. I worked for Navision Software, which was accounting software, and my role was to build alliances with accountants. So it was kind of a marketing position, a complete shift for an accountant. And then from there, I started doing my first presentation. I realized that that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to break down the barriers to understanding the stuff that we do as accountants because it's gobbledygook to most people. So I really wanted to accomplish two things by doing that. One, make it better for people who were clients to absorb what we said. But secondly, to make it better for the accountants who were doing unbelievable work for their clients but aren't getting recognition because nobody knows what they do. So a dual sort of focus. And when I was able to make people laugh in that first presentation, I saw the barriers to understanding go away. Because I'm an accountant, I'm doing tech, and both of those things are scary to a normal human. And you can't get through to them when you come in that way as an expert or a nerdy, techie sort of accounting person. And so to make them laugh, they realize that we're on the same team. So at that point, I realized I needed to get good at doing that because that was kind of the key to making an impact. So I took stand-up comedy training. I took all the speaker training I could find. I read a bunch of books on how to speak, including one from Seth Godin called Really Bad PowerPoint that made a huge impact on me. A simple concept, but revolutionary to an accountant like me. And then from there, I found tools. So I thought, when I went into tech, I thought this is going to be the secret. I can unlock the mystery of numbers by getting the right tool, technology. And so I ended up at a company that had an interactive dashboard that I could explain concepts to clients by changing numbers. And I was hired to sell that to accountants. And as I went around trying to do that, the accountants all said, I'm not going to ask those questions because I don't know what to do about it if somebody needs help. And I just want to mail them a report. And so that really frustrated me. So I went in search of training that would teach accountants how to have a conversation about numbers with clients and what to do about outcomes. And so that led me into advisory. I started speaking about that, and I've done that for the last 20 plus years. Eventually, I left the software companies. One transferred me from Atlanta to California, and I ended up at a firm in Napa Valley that was trained in the same advisory tools that I now teach other people to use. And so I joined the firm 18 years ago on a part-time basis, and all I do for the firm is advisory consulting with wineries. So kind of still very long story, but it was a very interesting journey. But I think it all comes down to, what does it take for you to uncover your real passion? And once you find that out, everything you do should align around that, and it will make a huge impact, hopefully. And it'll also make your life a lot more fun.
Absolutely. What a wealth of experience in your journey.
A lot of weird things, and who would have ever thought? And I'm from Greenville, South Carolina originally, and so ending up in Napa Valley, California was never on my radar, and I couldn't have planned it if I had
aren't those polar universes?
And they pretty much are.
They are.
We have Scuppernong in Georgia and South Carolina, which they've never heard of in Napa Valley, but very different world. Yeah.
Scuppernong?
Scuppernong. It's a very sweet wine, and I was drinking Franzia in a box when I lived in Atlanta. It's not exactly Napa Fine Cab.
Yes, right. So you do consulting. So you do a bunch of things, but one of the core things that you're doing is consulting work for this firm that you do this work for wineries.
I do.
Which is very important in that business. Margins are tight and it's competitive and all sorts of stuff that you are out of your control in any kind of growing industry where you rely on stuff that nature needs to make for you.
It's a very complex industry. It has everything:
Yes.
manufacturing, multi-channel selling, farming, production, all of that. And it's very complicated, and it tends to be small businesses that are in the industry, which makes it difficult because they have advanced needs and a small team.
That's right. Well, that's interesting. And then you mentioned a book, Seth Godin. I missed the title of it. What was
So it's actually an ebook, and he wrote this thing, and I think it's a blog post now. It's called Really Bad PowerPoint by Seth Godin.
Okay.
He's a marketing guy.
Wow.
And I've read all of his books. He's an amazing writer. And the next one I read was can't remember what it's called, Purple Cow, and it came in a purple milk carton. You had to open the milk carton to get the book out. And that's the coolest thing ever. I want to be that.
I saw Seth Godin speak back in, it would have been early 2000s.
Oh, wow.
And he was speaking, that was when his book Purple Cow, or he was still talking about Purple Cow at the time.
That's
and
amazing.
he had his suit, it had all like purple silk inside his suit. And I think purple glasses, and people know him. I have a friend who always say, that marketing guy with the glasses.
That's what it takes, right? It makes him stand out like a purple cow.
It makes him stand
that's what
out.
we're trying to do.
Got it. Yeah, it's a fantastic book. Love the book. Love Seth Godin. I've actually interviewed him a couple of times, and he's brilliant. He's brilliant. Now, getting back to you, I mean, all of the stuff that you've talked about is remarkable stuff, and it's tough. We talk about often. And someone that's on the podcast a lot, Lisa Campbell, works with bookkeepers to help them get to the place where they have the ability to do advisory, because advisory work is its own little It takes time, it takes certain skill sets. But if your bookkeeping firm is not set up with systems, processes, you have the team, if you're still on the grinding wheel doing all the work, it's going to be hard to do the advisory work. Now, you sort of pick up at that point, I'm thinking, where you help, you have a standard way, or you teach people how to actually bring this knowledge to the end user, the customer, the business owner.
Yeah.
And you kind of said that. You said at some point your accountants were like, "Oh, I don't want to say that or ask that." The fear of asking a question that opens up this opportunity for yourself to look stupid is really risky. And I know, like, from my learnings, it's always like, if you don't have the answer to a question, you just say, "I don't have that answer, but I'll get it back to you." So that's one step. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, because I think there's so much opportunity here. This is really becoming what it's all about, is advising and helping, and just like the work you're doing with the wineries, I'm sure you're invaluable to them. And that's the future. That's where we need to spend more time. So I'd love to hear more about that.
So the biggest challenge we have, and I've been training folks, I acquired the rights to the training that I had during COVID. And the founder, Edie Osborne at Mentor Plus, took the training that had been only offered live online in 2018, and I helped her do that. I helped her get it onto an online platform. And so when COVID hit, and I'd been speaking about this training for a long time already, so it was a part of everything that I do. And during COVID, I said, I'm either going to stop talking about this because people are calling me and I don't have the ability to help them, or I'm going to get involved in a deeper way. And so at that point, she said, go ahead, let's have a license agreement and you take it on. So that's when I created the Impactful Advisor brand, so I could help other accountants do what I do. But so in the process of training people and putting all these people through the program, it has become clearer and clearer to me that the biggest challenge we have to doing anything that we really want to do is our own lack of confidence in our abilities. We have given ourselves such a huge burden to bear in saying that we're here as the expert, when in fact the client is the expert. And our job is to make them feel smarter versus proving how smart we are. And that is the most common challenge that everybody that I work with has, that we're supposed to be the smartest people in the room. And it is impossible. I mean, I'm a redneck from South Carolina showing up in wine country. There was no way I was going to be the expert. And the beauty for me of coming into this industry where I knew absolutely nothing was that I didn't have to. And all I had to do was ask questions, because I was truly curious about what the heck is that? And what is lees and the bouquet and on the nose and malactic fermentation, the first scary science word I heard somebody talk about when they were talking about wine. And this was a winemaker who talked about malactic fermentation and blah, 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 and botrytis, which is a disease that makes the wine better. And I'm like, I'm not drinking that stuff. But when I know who wants a disease thing in their glass.
But I will say the only difference is that, if you're doing the accounting jargon versus the wine jargon, you can't say, hold on, let's have a glass of wine and talk about it.
Yeah, you can. That's the beauty. See, when you're in wine country, you can have
open that thing up and let's have some of it while you tell me all this jargon.
Stuff. But by the time that winemaker finished, that was my biggest aha moment. Coming into wine country, not knowing squat, before I started working with clients, I went to a tasting so I'd have a clue what was going on. And this winemaker went through, I swear, a 45-minute scientific explanation of what was in that glass. And my brain just went, oh my God, that's me when I'm talking about accounting. That's how people feel. They feel like me. And I'm not going to go, what are you talking about? Why would you put sweaty socks in your glass? Sometimes they say sweaty socks and cat pee when they're talking about wine. And you're going, I don't want that. And so
thanks.
It was the exact same experience. And I went, this is what I have to fight against in the accounting space. And I start much of my training classes doing that. I show their terminology and ours. And I talk about, this is how I make you feel the way I felt when I came into your winery. And if you make me feel that way, I will not buy the product because I don't value something that I don't understand. That is exactly the challenge we have in accounting. Nobody knows what we're really doing. And so if we want to increase the value of what we deliver, we've got to break down those barriers to understanding and find ways to make the information meaningful and relevant to what they're trying to accomplish. And so that's the shift that we have to make as a profession, I believe.
It's a great shift. And I don't know, it's an interesting take. I don't know that I've ever heard it before in this industry or really any. It's maybe in marketing from Donald Miller. He says in marketing, you're making your customer the hero.
That's exactly right.
And so this is you're making your customers the expert in their numbers.
They already are, but you're making them understand that they are, and you're giving them data to back up what they already most of the time know. So the best compliment you can get is, you're not telling me something I didn't already know. And I used to think that was a negative, because then what do you need me for, right? But what I've learned is, what I say to that is, exactly, but now you've got data to back it up. And that's when we've done our job, giving them tools to see that what they're doing is right, or if they need to make a correction, to identify it for them so that they can take corrective action. And that's the value of doing what we do.
That's super valuable. And it's the pathway to getting there, though, is this whole concept of making them feel like they're the expert in their finances and their numbers. Is not all roads lead to the destination that we want to get to. It's like most people wouldn't be doing a good job of that, I would say. And so you have this technique that helps do that, because just like you said, like you go there and you're hearing about all these technical things about wine. Is that really serving the customer? Right? You're staring and say, hey, can we just drink this thing already? And then and every customer is going to be different too, right? Like, know your customer. If you're walking up to a tasting, and a lot of the times, like any business, any industry, this applies, because the person that's tasting that wine may own the world's largest, best winery in the world. And if you don't know that, you're like, that's really missing the mark, right down to someone who's, been drinking something else all their what was it called?
In a box.
Okay, Franzia in a box. I've never heard of that one either, but
you're missing out. You need to go check it out. But this is the thing, Michael, we learn as much from our clients as they learn from us when we go out there. And I have learned so much about being an accountant from an experience being a customer in a winery. They have a retail facility, and just what you said, I go in there, and if they have a canned script, which many of the wineries used to have, they're going to go through all the history and all the thing and talk about their Chardonnay and their blah, 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 blah. And again, they hand you a glass and you're afraid to drink it because somebody's talking, right? You don't want to be rude, while somebody's having this big monologue. And, I do not like Chardonnay. I just don't like Chardonnay. So if you spend the first 30 minutes telling me about Chardonnay, you have lost me as a customer. I'm not going to buy it. That is exactly what we do when we're talking about the accounting. You're going to spend 2 hours covering the financial statements, and I don't care about the financial statements. I'm an owner. I don't ever open up the general ledger. I never go to QuickBooks. I'm over here looking at my e-commerce dashboard to see what's happening. And you're spending all your time dragging me through the financial statements that I could care less about. And we have to go to where they are first. And yes, the financials matter. We know they matter. But if they're not looking at them, then there's no value in them. They might need them for the bank, and yes, we can do that and make sure it's right, which we're going to do anyway. That's what we do. But we've got to go way beyond that to connect with that owner, and that's when our value starts to elevate. And those are the skills that most of us are not taught. We're taught how to get the check box filled for the requirements of complying with GAAP. And again, they could care less. Especially if they're a small business and all they care about is cash, and you're over there doing GAAP accrual-based accounting and making all these adjustments that don't really matter to them.
So this is big. It's communication. You've bridged the gap between the technical and the understanding through communication. So when it comes to our listener, which would be primarily bookkeepers, we'll have lots of CPAs that'll listen, and tax accountants. We have lots of varied listeners in the accounting industry, but predominantly it's called the successful bookkeeper. We have a lot of people that are gunning to be successful bookkeeper, but business owners. Where do they start to think differently about this? And what are some things that you would think that we would start them off by altering this? So
I had a bookkeeping business. I launched it in 2014 and closed it in 2022 because I couldn't find somebody to manage it. I lost my manager and clients went with her. And at that point, I got too much other stuff going on. But I launched it because the wineries were looking for somebody who could do the bookkeeping, and our firm doesn't provide that service. And I wanted to understand why it was so hard to get good books, but also I wanted to get closer to the pain and suffering that my clients have. So bookkeepers are in the best position to really have an impact for their clients and to make their businesses better. And bookkeepers are my audience. I speak at Scaling New Heights. I go to QuickBooks Connect. I mean, I've been working with bookkeepers. I used to speak at SleaterCon when Doug Sleater was doing that. I've done a lot of work in that space. And bookkeepers are, when you go to a conference that's bookkeeper focused, bookkeepers are looking to find solutions. They're going to the vendor tables. They're talking to product people. They're really ahead of what I think of as the traditional CPA, which is once a year check in and see how bad it is or how good it is, and not know what it took to get to that year end. The bookkeepers are in there with the client. They run the books of a client like they're their own. They worry about cash flow. They worry about meeting payroll. So they know where the pain is. And so they're in a position to help with automation, to help with dashboards, to help the owner of that business get whatever information they care about in a faster and more understandable way. And that's where bookkeepers can really elevate themselves. But first, they've got to ask questions that we're not used to asking. Number one question I would have every person who works with a client ask is, where do you go to see if your business is on track? That is going to tell you what matters. If I want to know right now, this minute, how are you doing? Where are you going to go? And show me what you're going to see. And generally, they're going to say, I can find out, but I won't know for a week or so because I have to get somebody to run an Excel something and manipulate it to give me the report I'm asking for. So they're going to get a week old, at least, information that they're going to try to make a decision about. And that isn't cutting it anymore. So our job is to get them whatever they need faster. And that's when they're going to see us as value-added providers instead of people doing stuff that they don't understand.
That's a powerful question. I'm hoping our listener pulled over the car and got their pen and paper out, wrote that
Carefully.
one down. Yeah, that one's a good one. You don't want to drive and write.
That's right.
And so that's a powerful question. If that was the only question you asked, you'd be winning.
That's right. You would, and we're not asking any questions except what's your financial problem?
Yeah, what accounts do you have?
And give me your stuff, right?
Yeah.
What?
That's right.
And looking at the financials, we need to fix your chart of accounts because it doesn't work for me that your chart is set up that way. Because it's easier for me if I can whatever. And then okay, here's what you do. And then we offer the solution generally in the first meeting and give away half the value of what we can do later versus really digging in and understanding the full aspects of the business that create whatever financial problem they are currently facing. So you have to go from financials, and we have a methodology that's called SCOPE, SCOPE, and the S is a dollar sign. So it's like this is the kind of stuff Edie does. She comes up with these cool ways of bringing things together. Yeah. So financial is the dollar sign, customers, operations, people, and end in mind. If you're going to fix any problem in a business, you've got to have insight across all those areas of the business. You can't just fix a financial problem in the financials. You got to go look at what's happening on the customer side, on the operational side, and all of those are opportunities for us to help. And so we have this way of asking what's working, what's broken, and what's your ideal outcome across each of those 5 areas. But it starts, and I'm sure you've done work with this, it starts with asking that client, and I'm in the wine industry, and you think they're like mystical, marketing savvy, cool, creative kind of people floating around doing fun stuff and, picking grapes.
A glass of wine in their hand.
Having fans and, all that stuff. And you ask an owner, why are you a winery? And they kind of go, to make a profit. And you go, no. If you wanted to make a profit, and that was your number one goal, you would not be in this industry because it's the hardest way to make a profit. It's hugely capital intensive, especially if you're in Napa. You have to buy an expensive vineyard. You got all this stuff. 5 years from planting to the first bottled wine that you can sell. 5 years of cash tied up, and you got to farm all that anyway. So if it can't be the reason.
Yeah.
Then you go, what was it about this that made you want to do this? And eventually they say something like, when I was in college, I came here and I had the best experience of my life. I proposed to my wife, and I decided then that I wanted to end up in wine country and have a winery. There's some heart-centered purpose that brought them into this industry. And that's true of whatever industry an entrepreneur has gone into generally. There's some challenge they had. I mean, think about yourself. Some challenge you faced or solved with somebody that made you want to do this in a bigger way, Michael. So when you get to that, that gives you a compass for deciding on everything else that you want to do with that client. But if you don't know that, you're operating in the dark, and you're never going to deliver the kind of value that your client is really looking for from you.
So interesting. You know what? It's a powerful way of thinking about it, and I love the really easy map that you've got with scope, right? And
that's right, scope, and there's a whole bunch of scope related tools in our toolkit.
Yeah. And that's the power of having a program, something like that. The work that you do is to be able to take people through this journey to find out all of that information.
That's right.
And get to the heart of the matter. And like I said, even if asking that one question that you mentioned, where do you go to find out how your business is doing? What's out there and the people that are doing this work, just not a lot of people are doing it. Like there's so much opportunity for improvement, and it's not like you need to do a lot to improve, right? So
That's
something
right.
like what you're doing and talking about, there's going to be quick wins. I'm sure that if only they did that, it would be like a miracle to their business in terms of the results that they can produce and the difference they would make.
It is almost miraculous. And that's when I found this toolkit, because everybody, and when I started speaking about it, nobody was talking about advisory. They didn't want speakers to talk about it because it was considered soft and fluff. They wanted technical education. And the conferences have shifted dramatically, which is a huge positive. And there are lots of great speakers. But there's a lot of talk about why you need to do advisory, but nobody tells you, what is that? When I'm sitting across from the client, what am I doing? And that's what I have, a toolkit. I didn't know what to do. I knew how to show them how bad things were. And I would say, come back next year and we'll see if it's better or worse. But I don't know what to do in between. This is what you do in between. You ask these questions. You gather what matters to them. You bring in the reports. You get analysis. You create metrics, and not metrics like AR days, which we all know. Those are KPIs at the top. Those are financial metrics. You create things like, how many bottles per day does each person in the tasting room sell? How many bottles a day on average does your customer buy when they buy? And how can we increase that from 4 bottles a day to 5? And when you break it down like that, and you train the tasting room people, not the CEO, how to make that change, now you've made a difference for a client. And that's what these tools are about, getting it from the CEO's understanding, which you must first have, down to the frontline workers, and breaking down $1 million of additional sales to 1 more bottle for each customer on their way to buy. And look what we can do to the bottom line when we do that. And that's what's fun. When I go into a tasting room and I've trained people, they go, there's that nerdy numbers lady. And I go, yeah. And they're excited, not depressed that I'm walking in there. So it's an amazing thing to see those people, the employees, understand the impact they can have on the financial objectives that are determined by somebody else.
Amazing. And who better to do this kind of work than bookkeepers and accountants,
than
right?
us, because we know.
Sure. And you have the attention to detail and the understanding of the numbers to take it to, and then through collaboration, finding out through the CEO or the operations people to go, okay, well, these are the numbers. How do we move those numbers? And these are the key things. Well, that was such a great conversation with Geni. In part 2, she shares practical tools and powerful mindset shifts to help you build stronger client relationships and step confidently into advisory work. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.